Welcome to This Horror Real.
The front door had already closed behind me when I heard it open again. I stopped halfway up the first flight of stairs. 3 men had followed me for 4 blocks from the corner store, and I had just watched one of them pull the exterior handle through the glass after I got inside. Locked. He looked directly at me and smiled. Then from downstairs, a man's voice said, "Upstairs." I ran. I had noticed them outside the store. A man in a gray hoodie, another in a black baseball cap, and a taller man hanging a few steps behind. When I left, they left. When I crossed the street, they crossed. When I turned onto my block, all 3 turned with me. That was when they stopped talking. I sped up. Their footsteps sped up too. One called, "Hey, hold up." Then, "We just want to ask you something." I reached my building, nearly dropped my keys, slipped inside, and yanked the heavy entrance shut. A hand slapped the glass. The gray hoodie pulled the handle. It didn't move. I started upstairs. Then the locked door opened behind me. I took the stairs 2 at a time. My apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old 6-unit building. No doorman, no security desk, no second locked door. If they were inside, nothing stood between them and me. I got into my apartment, threw the deadbolt, hooked the chain, and called Denise, the woman directly below me. "Did you just let 3 guys inside?" I whispered. "What? Did you buzz anybody in?" "No." Footsteps entered the stairwell. More than one person. Denise went quiet. "I hear them," she said. The footsteps reached the 2nd floor landing, then kept coming. I backed away from my door. They reached the 3rd floor. For several seconds, the hallway went silent. Then someone grabbed my doorknob. The knob turned once, stopped, then twisted harder. There were 6 apartments in the building. They had seen me enter, but they hadn't seen which unit I went into. I had been almost a full floor ahead of them. Still, they didn't test the apartment beside mine. They came directly to my door. I called 911. While I gave the dispatcher my address, someone knocked 3 times. Calm, almost polite. Then the voice from the sidewalk said, "Hey man, open up." I stayed silent. "We need to talk." The dispatcher asked if I had another exit. I told her about the fire escape outside my bedroom window. Then a quieter voice outside my door said, "Check the back." One set of footsteps moved away. They weren't leaving. They were splitting up. I ran to the bedroom and lowered myself beneath the window. Through the bedroom window, I could see part of the alley. At first, nothing moved. Then the tall man stepped around the corner below me. I dropped instantly. "One of them is behind the building," I whispered to the dispatcher. She told me to stay away from the windows. I crawled back toward the hallway. 2 men were outside my front door. One was beneath the fire escape. Both exits were being watched. Then the knocking stopped. A shadow shifted beneath my front door. Someone crouched down. A faint metallic scraping came from the lock. "Someone is doing something to my lock," I told the dispatcher. She asked if the deadbolt and chain were engaged. Both were. I grabbed the cast iron pan from my stove and stood where I could see the door. They weren't kicking it. They weren't yelling. They were trying to get in quietly. After several seconds, the sound stopped. Someone whispered, "He's in there." Then the knob rotated again, and I saw the latch shift slightly inside the frame. Not enough to open, but enough to make my stomach drop. Whoever was outside knew what he was doing. My phone vibrated. Denise had texted me, "Don't open your door." Before I could answer, another message appeared. "One of them is down here." One of the men had gone back to the 2nd floor. He knocked on one apartment, then another, telling people he was looking for someone named Marcus. Nobody named Marcus lived in the building. Then Denise sent another message. I told her I was already on with 911 and not to open her door. Her next message came seconds later. Running footsteps hit the stairwell. Soon 2 voices were outside my apartment again, but their approach changed. No more lock scraping, no hard knocking. The first man suddenly sounded friendly. "Hey, sorry man, wrong person." Another voice laughed softly. "We thought you were somebody else." Then the first man said, "Just open the door so we can explain." If they had the wrong person, there was nothing to explain. I repeated everything to the dispatcher. She told me not to answer them. The man knocked again. "We're leaving. My bad." Footsteps moved toward the stairs, then silence, 10 seconds, 20. I knew not to open the door, but I wanted to know if they had actually gone. I moved toward the peephole. The hallway looked empty. I could see the stairs and the opposite wall. Nobody. Then a face slid in from the side. One eye suddenly filled the peephole. He tapped the wood gently. I know you're right there. Then I heard another lock turn across the hallway. Mr. Harris, an older man who lived alone, cracked his door open. One of the strangers moved toward him immediately. "Can I help you?" Mr. Harris asked. "We're looking for our friend." "Who?" There was a pause. Then the man gave my apartment number, my exact number. Mr. Harris said, "He doesn't want to talk to you. You need to leave." The stranger's voice changed instantly. "Mind your business." Mr. Harris slammed his door. The man struck it once with his palm, hard, then walked back toward mine. He stopped directly outside. "You made this a bigger deal than it had to be," he said. Then he said something that erased any chance this was a mistake. My first name. I froze. He said my name again. "We know it's you." I had never spoken to those men. I hadn't answered a call while walking home. I had paid cash at the store. Until that moment, part of me still wanted to believe they had mistaken me for somebody else. That possibility was gone. He just said my name. I whispered to the dispatcher. She asked if I recognized any of them. I didn't. Outside, the men suddenly went quiet. Then one of them said, "Car." Footsteps rushed toward the stairs. Relief hit me for half a second. Then metal rattled outside my bedroom window. The fire escape. The third man was climbing toward me. I backed into the hallway where I could see both the front door and bedroom entrance. Two men were running downstairs. The third was climbing closer. The fire escape shook against the brick. Then red and blue light flashed across my living room wall. Police. The movement outside the bedroom stopped. A second later, the fire escape rattled violently as the man climbed back down. I heard shoes hit the alley, then running. Inside the building, someone shouted, "Police!" The dispatcher told me officers were entering and another unit was moving toward the alley. Heavy footsteps came upstairs. A voice outside identified himself as an officer, but I still didn't unlock the door. I made the dispatcher confirm police were standing outside my apartment. Only then did I touch the deadbolt. Police caught the man in the gray hoodie about 2 blocks away. The other two disappeared. Later, an officer told me the detained man had a folding knife in his pocket and a small pouch containing tools that could be used to manipulate locks. That explained the scraping at my door. It didn't explain why they had chosen me. The man first claimed they thought I was somebody who owed them money. Then he said he didn't know the other two men. Later, they became relatives. Then he claimed they followed me because they thought I had stolen something. None of it held together. An officer asked if my name had been printed on my grocery receipt. I checked. It wasn't. I had paid cash. So the question remained, how did 3 strangers who had followed me from a store know my name, and how had they opened my building's locked front door? 2 days later, police reviewed the corner store security footage. The 3 men had arrived separately and barely interacted when I first entered. Then I walked to the register. One noticed me and moved closer. While I was paying, the man in the baseball cap stood several feet behind me with his phone raised. I remembered opening my wallet. My driver's license sat behind a clear plastic window with my first name visible. If he zoomed in with his phone camera, he could have read it. That probably explained my name. But the footage showed something worse. I left the store. The man with the phone waited a few seconds and followed me. Then the other 2 followed him. No argument, no confusion. They had chosen me before I knew they were behind me. Yet the footage still couldn't explain the most important detail, how they got through the locked entrance. Several days later, a detective called. Police had gone back through the property taken from the man in the gray hoodie. Along with the knife and lock tools, they had recovered several loose keys. My landlord met with them. One of those keys opened the front entrance to my apartment building. I made the detective repeat it. The man who followed me home had already been carrying a working key to the exact building where I lived. My landlord didn't recognize it. It wasn't a current tenant copy. The lock was old. Tenants had come and gone. Contractors and maintenance workers had been given access over the years. Anyone could have duplicated a key. Nobody could determine where this one came from. But it meant the men hadn't simply followed me to a random building and found a lucky way inside. At least one of them already had access to it. Police never determined why. The other two men were never identified. I moved less than a month later. The landlord changed the exterior locks and installed a camera above the entrance. But the part I still think about isn't the knife or the lock tools. It's the key. The man who followed me home already had access to the building I was running toward for safety. Police never learned where he got it, why they chose me, or who the other two men were. If I had stopped when they called to me, held the entrance because I thought they were neighbors, or believed them when they said they were leaving, police might have arrived to a very different scene. If three strangers followed you home, got inside your locked building, found your apartment, and called you by name through the door, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe to This Horror Real for more realistic horror stories where ordinary situations turn dangerous fast. Because sometimes the person following you home doesn't need you to open the door.